Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. I'm excited for you guys to hear the guest that I have today. His name is Brenden Roscoe, and he comes from a local advocate of the blue collar trades and follower of the Blue is the New White podcast, somebody I've been connected to for a couple of years now, who works at a company called Arizona Pneumatic Systems here in Tempe. And I'm very excited about this because Brenden has an awesome background, a very relatable background to many, I think, out there. He starts his life in San Diego. His dad was a plumber. His mom actually worked for a pipe and fitting supply company. So he's been in the trades and exposed to the trades and around the trades since he was young. And he did make the decision to go into the trades, wanting to own his own construction company one day, and was able to get some real life experience doing masonry, foundations, block wall, architectural stuff, TI, so tenant improvements, framing, rough carpentry, structural and drywall stuff, just to get his hands on all of it and learn as much as he could. Unfortunately, he faced a setback when it came to addiction at that point, which he opens up about in this episode. So make sure you tune in to hear all about it and how he came out of it and emerged on the other side as an excellent father and husband and friend, and was able to get his life back on track in the trades and continue his journey where it led him all the way out here to Arizona to start a compressed air mechanical company, CAM, compressed air mechanical, as part of Arizona Pneumatic Systems. So really just an incredible story, inspiring, and I'm excited to share it with all of you and introduce you today to Brenden. So that said, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and on our website at blueisthenewwhite.com to receive all the latest updates. As always, this show's not monetized and we don't run ads. We rely strictly on word of mouth from our listeners to further the mission. So if you enjoy this episode, please do me a favor. Take a second out of your time, out of your day, to rate it, review it, and share it with your friends. The future generations of tradespeople depend on it. The future of civilization depends on it. Depends on you. So thank you again and enjoy this episode of Blue is the New White with Brenden Roscoe. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. I've got an awesome guest here today. Actually, somebody that I've been in contact with for a few years now, who found me on LinkedIn. His name is Brian Gordon, and he works at a local company in town called Arizona Pneumatic. And he's been a huge advocate of Blue is the New White, a huge advocate of the show. And he introduced me to Brenden.
That's right. You got it.
Yeah, Brenden Roscoe, and who I have with me today. You guys are going to absolutely love his story. This is his first podcast, so let's be a little forgiving, all right? But he's going to do great. And Brenden, I just want to say first and foremost, welcome to the Blue is the New White podcast.
Thank you, Josh, for having me. I'm excited to be here and to be able to share my story and to be able to see where this goes.
Yeah, man, absolutely. We're super excited too. So in the spirit of seeing where this goes, kind of take us through, man. Introduce yourself to the audience and let us know who you are, where you came from, and kind of how you got to where you are today, man.
So my name is Brenden Roscoe. I'm born and raised in San Diego, California. I come from a family who has been involved into the trades. My dad is a plumber. So he's been a plumber for all his life. Ever since he was 18, he got into the trade. And he told me at a young age, he said, look, son, the focus that you need to have in life is where you're going to go and how you're going to do it. And he gave me some advice. He said, people will always need to take a shit and they always need to wash their hands afterwards. He said, that's why I chose to be a plumber. He said, so if you think with that mindset, you'll be able to go far in life. And, so I was able to see him transpire over the years from project management, estimating. He ran the light commercial division for a company. So he was some inspiration to me for coming up. When I was in high school, I wasn't really looking much towards the future. I was more or less looking around, on what is right now, which was for me, it was a lot of partying and doing what you're not supposed to do as a kid, according to your parents.
You and I have that in common, my friend.
Yeah. Well, so after high school, I tried getting into the union. I tried following my dad's footsteps, and it didn't really work out for me too well. I was not feeling the union lifestyle, just kind of where they were, how they handled it, dictated where I would go and how I would do it. So I broke away from that. I made up my mind at that point in time. This was about the age of 18, that I would work for myself in the future. And so I got into school. I got into regular school like everybody else was doing. And I went to a junior college, and I lasted about a half a semester. And then I said, I'm tired of doing school like this. It's not for me. I'm very hands-on, mechanical guy. I like building things. I like creating. That's the artistic side of me. And so I dropped out. I got out of college, and I made up my mind at that time that I would make the world my school, so to speak. There was a lot of different companies that were out there that were hiring tradesmen. And so I sought out to learn as many trades as I could. I would utilize different people that were hiring at that time.
Let me stop you real quick, just for a sec. We'll
Sure.
We'll get back there. I've got that noted. But I've got a couple of questions about kind of when you were coming up, when you were in high school. Your dad's influence on you with that regard. So first off, when you were in high school, what was the narrative for you? And was in San Diego? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
in San Diego, where you were, what was the narrative for you when you were in high school with regard to college? You said you ended up going to junior college, but before that you tried union work. So was there any kind of influencing factor in the education system to push you one way or another?
You know what, Josh, there was not really. There was some influence in them trying to push me to go to college. I enrolled in an AVID class, Advanced Via Individual Learning or Determination, whatever the acronym is. So it was a class that was supposed to prepare you for college. And that class was one of the reasons why I decided to go and get in the union like my dad did, is because there was so much, reading and different things that I didn't feel would take me where I wanted to go in life. So there was influence, but there wasn't anything that was a derivative that was going to drive me to go to school.
Okay, well, that's fair. What about from your peers, like the circle that you hung out in? Where was that circle? Did they end up going to college? Did they go in the trades route as well?
A few of my friends, they did. They went to college. They played sports. I did as well. I had University of Laverne was looking at me for football. But
what position?
Defensive end,
All right,
tight end. Yeah, so both sides. But football, it wasn't for me. So I decided not to go that route. But a few of my friends, they went and they did sports, wrestling, football. They went on to school. But a lot of my friends that I was hanging out with, as I stated before, I wasn't hanging out with the best of people are making the best of decisions. And so a lot of them didn't go to school. They decided to party instead.
Gotcha. I understand. Believe me, man, I've been there. All right, cool. All right. So what about, and listen, if there's anything that you don't want to answer, just tell me to shut the fuck up. All right. That's kind of how this show works. So,
All right.
so your dad was a plumber, and that's great. What about your mom? What kind of influence did she have?
That's a good question. I didn't really talk about my mom that much. She was involved in selling pipe and fittings.
Really?
Yeah, so she worked for a mechanical supplier, and she worked for Liberty Equipment and Supply. It was this kind of a small time San Diego company, and she sold pipe and fittings. So she was a woman coming up in a man's industry, and she really did make a name for herself in the construction trade, because it wasn't common that you would see a woman going onto a job site or dealing with a man's world pretty much at that point in time when she was coming up. I mean, I was born in '83, and I think she got into that a few years before I was born. So this was early '80s. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And especially back then, she was a pioneer.
Yeah,
Shit, that's
absolutely.
That's awesome. All right, so both your parents had experience in the trades, so it wasn't really a shock to them then when you expressed interest in going into the trades.
No, it was not. Of course, yeah. My dad, oh, you need to go to the union. And then you have my mom, and said, oh, follow your heart. You're going to do great. So they were both very supportive of no matter what I wanted to do. But they were both very supportive of me getting out there and trying to develop myself in the trades.
Yeah. And what did that mean to you? I mean, to have two parents that were able to support you in that way.
Well, there's some pushback in how I was going about it. We just started to get into that, but what it meant to me is at that point in time, I didn't know what it meant to me. Now
That's
I can
fair.
look back.
That's fair.
Now I can look back and I can say, you know what? To have two parents that were supportive of me and got behind me, to be able to push me forward to who I am and what I've become today, that says a lot.
Yeah.
That says a lot.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because I think at that age, almost everybody takes their parents for granted. I mean, or at least a lot of us do, and the support that they give or even lack thereof. Listen, I mean, my parents were always pretty supportive, but even the things that they didn't support me on, or one or the other, you look back when you reach a certain age and you're like, okay, I get it now. Like,
Yeah.
I understand. So, okay,
Yeah.
very cool. All right, good. That satisfies my curiosity on that. All right, so let's bring us back. You were making the world your school and utilizing all these different companies to help you gain skills.
Yes. So what I decided to do is that I made my mind up that I was going to own my own construction company. And of course, you need experience to be able to do something of that nature. You can't just go out and start building things. And so that's what I did. I got into masonry. I did masonry for some time. I learned how to build foundations, block walls, CMU block walls. I also did architectural masonry, with like building slides for pools and things of that nature. And then I got into a tenant improvement company, and they were a design build tenant improvement company. So I really got to get a lot of hands-on experience in carpentry and framing. And so I learned how to build structures and also install the finished carpentry in thereof. I was able to get some drywall experience during that time. And so that's the direction that I started going towards, and really making some headway towards my goal. During that time, I got looped back in with some wrong friends, and my life started to go a different direction. I got into using drugs, using methamphetamine. So I was, for 3 years, about two and a half, 3 years, I was still trying to maintain. I was doing work, as far as construction goes, doing little projects here and there, but really kind of fell off from my goals on my track,
Yeah.
which was to work for myself and be a contractor. So really at that point, it came down to survival. What am I going to do to be able to work and live?
Well, let me stop you there real quick. I got a couple
Okay.
questions.
All right.
All right, man. And like I said, just punch me in the face if there's anything you don't want to answer. When you got all this experience, right, masonry, you did foundations, block walls, tenant TI, framing and structural and drywall. Is there any specific trade that you gravitated toward more than another? Is there something you enjoyed most out of all of that? Because that's a lot of specialty stuff.
It is a lot of specialty stuff. And if I had to really kind of hone in on what I liked at that time, it would have been the rough carpentry. It would have been the rough carpentry and just working with a group of individuals on where you can yell out cuts and you have somebody who's cutting materials and you really kind of have the system down, and you walk up to the job site in the morning and you see, just a foundation. At the end of the day, if everybody's working together in unison, you could walk away and then see 4 walls standing at the end of the day with the kickers holding them up. So I really liked framing and the rough carpentry. I think that's what stood out to me most during those years.
That makes sense. Being able to take a step back and actually physically see what you built,
Yes.
I think that's something I preach about a lot on this show and in the book, because, you talk about desk jobs and white collar jobs and, especially like data entry and stuff like that. You can't take a step back and look at what you accomplished that day,
Right. Not really. You're able to see the evidence on a spreadsheet. But other than that, I don't know.
That's different. I mean, look around, you know what I mean? And that's, so I totally get that. I'd probably be right there with you, framing and rough carpentry. It's satisfying work and the sense of accomplishment is fantastic. So you knew that you were just getting all this experience because you ultimately wanted to start this construction company one day. And that was your objective. And that's what kind of kept you on this path. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So I'm going to ask you a hard question now. And if you don't want to answer it, don't.
Okay.
What made you fall off?
What made me fall off would be a little bit of what I was touching on before, which was just trying to live a life on where I could survive, because going through life as an addict is a completely different mindset on a sober individual who's thinking about goals in the next day and where and how you're going to meet those goals versus on when you can get your next high and things of that nature. So it's I would have to say that that's where my attraction or focus really detoured. Shortly thereafter, I had to get clean. And so, by my family's intervention, I got clean. I worked the steps, I worked the programs, and it was a completely different focus on what life became for me on a sober level. So on a sober level, I became a father. I became, a significant other to my now wife. So, excuse me. So it was a complete transition from the direction I was heading to on what I had to focus on at that point in time.
Yeah. Well, all the respect in the world goes out to you, brother. Like, that's not an easy thing to accomplish. And I think and myself and a lot of my listeners recognize that too. So
Yeah.
that's remarkable, and it's a great story, and it sounds like, you know, stuff like that. And you know, I'm no expert, right? But stuff like that sometimes it feels like can make you appreciate things a little bit more, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
in your state now, being a father and a husband, you know, and successful tradesman. I mean, this is stuff that you have a deeper appreciation for this kind of stuff, I think, that than a lot of people who hadn't gone through that before. Not taking anything away from those people. I'm just saying it's a different feeling and a different mindset for you because you've been somewhere that others haven't.
That's right.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. Good. All right, man. Well, good for you. Where did we leave off here? So you became a father, you became a husband. You know, what's next? Now you're starting the climb, right? You that was the valley. Now you're on your way to the peak. What's that like?
So what that became like is after recovery, I got back into knowing or doing what I know how to do. So I got back into carpentry, into tenant improvement. I was working for a family friend. He had his construction company, and he was at that time flipping houses. This was 2007. So he was flipping houses, and I was working for him, and things were seemingly well. And then I had this incredible opportunity to work for a boat manufacturer, somebody who built custom boats. So I went and worked for a boat builder.
And what year was that?
That was 2007. So that all kind of happened within the same year. So I got back into the trade. That lasted for about 3 months until this opportunity came up. So I worked building boats, quickly progressed within that company in a short period of time. I became the operations manager, overseeing every single process of building the boat. And that's
fucking cool, man. I'm sorry. That's cool.
No, thank you. So towards the end of 2008, that's when the recession happened, and we were in the middle of a couple of builds for some gentlemen in Dubai. And literally the same day that the news of the recession went out, they called us and they said, "Hey, where are you at in the build?" We told them, and they cut a check for that amount of where we were at in the build. That day, we ceased to exist as far as a boat building company.
Whoa.
Yeah. So they basically had to, there were some investors involved and whatnot. So they basically had to liquidate everything and divvy everything back up. And that was that. So I went from loving my job, excited to wake up every day, to be able to go to work, and to not knowing what I was going to do. So as I stated before, both my parents were in the trades, grew up into it. My mom has many contacts, and so she got me into a program. It's called the ABC program, Associated Builders and Contractors. So I got into that program to become a pipe fitter. So I thought I would do things a little bit different than my dad. Building septic or sewage systems and, water treatment and stuff like that, to doing hydronics piping for HVAC commercial systems. So that's kind of where I went. After the recession, I got into school. It was a 4-year program. And so after about 4.5 years, actually, after the 4.5 years, I graduated with a certificate. I'm a certified journeyman, pipe fitter and steam fitter. And from that point in time, I got out into working for a couple of different mechanical companies. And, and that's the thing in the mechanical trade of being a pipe fitter. you tend to go from company to company.
I've heard that.
So
I've known a few pipe fitters, and that's exactly. So this was union? Was this union work?
this was a non-union program.
Okay.
So that's kind of what really was appeasing to me about the ADC program,
Yeah.
is that it was all the same training and fundamentals that the union could offer. I mean, of course, it's probably not exactly like for like, but similar to thereof. And uh, I did not have to conform or do what they wanted me to do. I could still be my own person, and so it was a really great avenue for me. Still was able to put in for my retirement, so on and so forth. So it was a good program. I liked it. But that is the thing about the being a pipe fitter, is you get to experience a lot of different cool jobs. I helped with the Terminal 2 expansion of the San Diego airport. So that was a neat project to be on.
So answer me this. Are you one of those guys where every time you pass the airport, you're like, hey, see that terminal right there? See that terminal?
Yes,
I did that.
I am one of those guys. Yeah.
That's a mark of a tradesperson, isn't it?
It is. As I'm passing on the freeway, driving by Temecula, California, I look over on the freeway and I see the Civil Center, and I had a part in that as well. And it's more than that though. When you're driving by there, that's when the memories come back, and you can remember being up on a ladder or going back to the airport build, working on a Saturday, getting ready to do a hot tap on a 24-inch chilled water pipe, and working with the welder, and we're getting ready to drill into the side of this thing while it's still live. That's some cool stuff. And so when I am driving by the airport or the Civic Center, I look over there and I say, yes, I had a part in that, because there's a lot of memories that go along with it. A lot of cool stuff that we were able to turn around and look back at and see that we built, kind of like what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. You know what? That's so funny you mention that, because, you always hear people joke about that, right? Like, hey, that's, when a tradesperson drives by something that they built or they point it out. But you're absolutely right, and you're the first person who's made that association to me, that it's more than just the pride factor, right? Like, hey, I did that. It's the memories, right? Because You're absolutely right. I do the same thing in Phoenix, right? I mean, if I drive by a restaurant, that I helped build or something like that, I'm quick to point it out. But the second I point it out, it's like my memory is being flooded with all of the circumstances and the instances and the people, that I was working with, or, if it was a special circumstance. Usually those are the ones that stand out, right? Where something cool happened or something really shitty happened. Yeah.
A lot of high pressure or high stress.
Well, exactly. No, that's great. And I think my audience is going to really enjoy that too, because they're going to relate, man. You're absolutely right. Those memories, that's good. All right, good. You got me goosebumps. All right, we can keep going.
Well, I didn't mean to do that to you, but where did we leave off, Josh?
You were a certified journeyman pipe fitter,
Yes.
steam fitter, and you were just talking about the doing some work at the terminal in the airport.
That's right. So the ins and outs of the pipe fitting trade. When a company gets these projects, long projects, they'll hire up and they'll hire in a lot of people. They'll I guess knock out that project, for lack of a professional term. They'll go and knock out that project, and then they keep their core people, and then the rest of the people, they go on the bench for a union term, or they have to sit at home and try to find work somewhere else. So when I say that I worked at a few different companies, that's the reason why. So I worked at a few different companies, built a few very neat projects, a couple of hotels and whatnot. And I was sitting down with one of my friends. He and his dad, they started an air compressor company in 2008. And I was showing him some pictures of the project that I was on. And he asked me, he said, you built all that? And I said, yes, I did. And he said, "Do you want a job?" I said, "No, yeah, I don't really think that's going to work. I'm over here. I'm settled in. I'm doing my thing. It's a completely different avenue. I don't know if I really want to go down that road or entertain that." So, after a few more discussions, there I was going to work for an air compressor company. And the reason being is that being a pipe fitter, you have to have your family has to be willing to sacrifice that a lot of times, because the work is not always right there in town.
Yeah.
The mechanical companies, they like taking on big projects. And for me, that meant driving up to LA from San Diego. And that's not a daily trip that you want to make with the traffic that's up there.
No. I spent a few years in California myself, and in LA County, and yeah, dude.
No.
No.
I don't know how people deal with it. That's for a different discussion, but so I had to stay there. So, we worked 410s. That was kind of neat. We were able to do that, but it got old and it got tiresome. And the offer that my friend had proposed to me to be able to come and work for his company would put me back at home. So that was the driving factor in kind of picking up and starting all over again. Come to find out, it was a unique trade within itself. It's an unspoken trade.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people realize that everything that we see, touch, and feel in our daily environment, compressed air had something to do with making or creating whatever it is that's tangible to you. Manufacturing, the dentist's office. I mean, air and vacuum is in everything. The cell phones that we talk on every day, compressed air and vacuum, 100% had something to do with creating that device, and it wouldn't have been able to be created without it. So it is a unique trade all within it itself, and it's not something that's highly talked about, but it's very neat, and I'm glad that I went down that path and be able to learn what I know today. So
no,
it's very neat.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you're getting a chance to kind of explain to everybody here that how important compressed air or air and vacuum, as you put it, really is. Because on our first conversation in our phone call, right, we're talking about the skilled trades and, kind of, so some industries are a little bit more noticed than others. I mean, mechanics, when you think about auto mechanics and, plumbers, obviously, but largely and far and wide, there are so many trades out there that are responsible for things that we just take for granted every day. You know what I mean? And it's amazing. Everything that's in frame right now for me around here, the books, the shelf, the guitar, the walls, the windows. I mean, all of this stuff is a result of the trades. And the same thing for you. I mean, that shelf behind you, the wall, the clock. I mean, people just don't realize, how much the trades touch, and air and vacuum being part of those invisible trades is just, that's something that people need to hear, man.
Yeah, I agree, and I support that statement. It is something that people need to hear, because without it, there's companies that are on standstill. I know, because we get the phone calls. Hey, my compressor's down, and I have 100 employees standing around looking at me, and I need you here right now. And so it is a vital part into daily life and to a lot of people's workspaces.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right. So where'd you go from there? So you got involved with that company. You're still in San Diego at this point, or
Yes.
you gave up the commute back and forth to LA, and you're in San Diego, you're doing this job. How long did you do that for, and how did it take you then to Arizona?
So, well, I started out as an installer. Installing compressors for different customers and doing piping for them. And it was really neat to be able to go into these places. And a lot of places, man, they're run down.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They're run down. Mom and pop type of businesses that are barely making it by. The last thing on their mind is revamping the compressor room, or if it's working, it's fine. I don't care about it. That's the type of attitude or mentality that a lot of people have because their money and focus needs to go elsewhere. So in that time, I would install compressors and do a little bit of piping, and I was able to see the dividends, or my schooling and my practice pay off, because people would invite me back. They would say, "Hey, you know what? I need Brenden back here because he did this little piping right here in this area, and I want everything else to look just like that." So that was really neat, and a compliment, to my work ethic. But that all goes back to the schooling and the process of my upbringing through the program. So it's really neat on how it was all able to tie together. Being an installer, I had to learn another trade, which was electrical. So they go hand in hand. You have to power the air compressor in order to be able to make the air. So I got to learn how to install electrical and different circuit sizes and amps and how all that works. And so that was really neat. I was always kind of scared of electrical because of an incident. I was on an aluminum ladder and I was working above a microwave, and I got shocked, and it threw me off the ladder about 6 feet back. I landed on my feet, and I was like, that's it. Never again will I touch electricity. So going into this trade, it kind of helped me face that fear, so to speak. And now I embrace it. I embrace it full on. And it's really neat that I was able to learn that. So progressing into my career, shortly thereafter, about 2 years working as an installer, I progressed into project management and working with the clients on a different level, the customers on a different level, and also. At that company, they put me through schooling. There's not much schooling for compressed air, pneumatics, as you want to call it.
Right.
So there is a school that's called Best Practices. They put on this program. You go and you sit down and you learn all about beginning to the end, why things are implemented, and how you can set up a system, the do's and the don'ts of compressed air, volume, the size of piping. So I got to learn all these aspects through these different programs that the company had put me into. And I would say about year 3 of being at that company, I decided to move my family out to Arizona. And that was mostly for personal reasons. In the schooling system out there, they were trying to really dictate on how my kids were going to live, what they were going to do,
Yep.
how they were going to do it, and what they were going to learn. And I decided, that's not for me. I need to go somewhere where I can still have freedom of choice, where I can have a decision on what my kids will be involved in. So I moved my family. Yeah, thank you. So I moved my family out to a state where they still believe in freedom, and it just so happened that it's not too far from where I was. It's only 5 hours from San Diego.
Yeah.
So mixed with loyalty issues to a friend, and also wanting to continue on to serve this customer basis that I had built. I traveled back and forth, and I did that for approximately 2 years until I said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I really have to focus on my family. And, you know, it was great. And I started looking for work out here in Arizona. And about at the beginning of August, so 3 weeks ago, I started working out here in Arizona full time. So it's been great.
That's awesome. And that brings us to today.
Yes.
All right. It's a hell of a story, man. And you've lived about 17 different lives, it sounds like.
Definitely.
Which makes you well-traveled, in my opinion. But that's pretty incredible, you know, and especially, you know, I get the loyalty, you know, I get the loyalty part of it. And because that's, you know, you started doing that with your friend and stuff like that. But traveling back and forth for 2 years, man, that had to be hard.
It was hard. And when I was in it, meaning that, you know, the grind of waking up at 4:30 in the morning on Monday, my wife waking up with me, she had to drive me to the airport, getting on a plane and flying out to San Diego, and then flying back out to Arizona Thursday night. All for my wife have to pick me up at, you know, the airport at Thursday night. And it got to be very rigorous, but when I was in it, it was just that was what I was doing.
Yeah.
That was the thing. So it was part of the grind. And, you know, my family, my kids, I have 4 kids. So I started seeing the effects of what I was doing take part in my kids. And that's where I draw the line, you know.
That's where you have to.
That was that.
Yeah.
That's where, exactly.
Absolutely. That's our job, right? as
it,
husbands and fathers, man, that's what we do. We have to make those decisions, and I'll tell you what, they're not always easy. In fact, most of the time they're not easy, and it's the hard ones that are the ones that count usually. So, you know, that's
absolutely
definitely where we're at. All right, so we're rounding the corner on having to wrap up this podcast. I can't believe it. We've been talking for almost an hour already, if you can believe it.
Oh, that's incredible. No, I cannot.
So, but I do have a couple of questions for you before we jump off. So, first off, what would you say to somebody who was like you in high school and kind of didn't know what their path was going to be, didn't really hold future with a ton of regard, you know, focused really only on the now? What kind of advice would you give? Let's just pretend you're talking to you, right? What kind of advice would you give to yourself at 18 years old?
Wow. That's something that I have not thought about before or given much thought to.
Good. That's my job.
If I had to give advice to somebody like myself at that point in time in life, it would be to focus on the goal that you set out for yourself. Focus on the goal that you set out for yourself. Don't let anything come into interference with that goal, and stay strong in your mindset and stay focused on that goal, because it will take you places. I think that would be it.
Yeah. It's good advice. It's really, it's good advice. It's not something that when you're that age, somebody can even tell you, right? It's something that usually you have to figure out for yourself. So I love that advice. I think you're absolutely right. You know, keep your eye on the prize. Don't waver from what you're trying to do, that kind of stuff. If more people heeded that advice at a young age, I think that, their chances of success go way up. So I think that's really good advice. Which kind of leads into my second question, right?
Okay.
And this is a question I like to ask everybody at the end of the show. I talk a lot about success in my book, on the podcast. We're talking about it right now. And I'm a firm believer that everybody has a different definition of what success means, which is why we can't just push everybody towards college and call it the universal definition of success. That's just not how it works, right? So I'm curious, Brenden, what is your definition of success, and how is what you're doing right now helping you achieve that?
So my definition of success is being able to look at yourself in the mirror and being content and pleased with the person that I've become, or the person of who you are. And if the people that are around you are supporting you to be that person who you identify with in the mirror, for me, it's a child of God. And, I want to be a man of honor and integrity. And I won't detour from that. That's me. That's who I am. And that's who I will be. And so I am successful because I've surrounded my people in my life, or I've surrounded myself with people in my life that are going to help me uphold and attain that goal or that idea of success.
That's awesome.
I feel like there was a second part to that question. I might not have.
No, you kind of touched on it. It was,
Okay.
What is how you're doing today helping you, or how is what you're doing today helping you achieve that? But kind of you went into that by surrounding yourself with the people, to help uplift you and, support that version of yourself, essentially, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We all have choices to make in lives, and I think that's one of the most important ones. Is who we surround ourselves, and I found it to be fewer people in my life that can come in and uphold and help me to attain to that goal, the better. Just because you're able to be more vulnerable with less people of the same mindset, and that's also key to being able to obtain or uphold that goal.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't talk about enough, I think, that because you're absolutely right. I'm much the same way, right? I'd rather have a small group of close friends than a large group of acquaintances. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
you just, the support goes a long way. It means more, and so do you believe then what they say, what do they say? You're a result of the people you hang out with, or how that
yes
quote goes?
Yes, I would believe that, and I would say definitely. I want somebody in my life who's going to tell me that, hey, B, you stink.
Yeah.
Go do something about it, rather than a lot of people that are around. Oh yeah, you look so great, and you look like you're doing so good, and that's all an image. I need realism in my life, and so yeah.
Props to you, man, for recognizing that, because there's a lot of people out there that prefer it the other way around. They just want to hear the good things, but that's not where growth happens. You and I know that, right?
That's it. 100%.
You need somebody to be able to look at you in the face and be like, hey, man, the fuck up. It's time to go.
That's it.
Yeah,
Let's go.
All right, cool, man. That's awesome. All right, cool. Well, hey, listen, we're running out of time here. So before we hop off, you want to tell people out there where they can find you, or anything else about your company?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn with associated with Cam. That's compressed air mechanical. So it's a company that we started out of Arizona Pneumatic Systems Incorporated in Tempe, Arizona. We are looking to be a specialist at what we do. There's a lot of mechanical companies that are out, installing compressed air systems, and they lean a lot on our understanding. And we want to continue to be able to support the other mechanical trades, but we also want to be more involved, a direct conduit, and be a company who's going to be able to influence this kind of unknown trade of compressed air and vacuum. And we really want to build it up and develop it the right way. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also email me at compressedairmech.com. That's MECH.com, compressed air mech. And so you can find me in either of those two ways.
Awesome. Well, Brenden, dude, I know you're a busy guy. I really appreciate you spending the time that you did today with me and my listeners. I know they're going to get a ton of value from what you had to say today.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, and really look forward to seeing the growth and development on your influence on the younger generation and how this will all transpire.
Well, thanks a lot for saying that, Brenden. And until next time, bud, don't be a stranger.